Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Blatstein, the physician founder of Physician Pre-Sentence Report Service. Today, I'm going to go through sentence mitigation strategies, if you will. Is your biography going to be compelling? What is a biography? Why is it necessary? And the one thing it's not is that it is not an excuse for what happened. So, what am I talking about? What's your next step? I'm going to assume that you have a great attorney. Do you? The reason I bring that up is because attorneys are trained in the law, but they're not trained, if you will, in the nuances of what happens um, after you're guilty and you're prepared for the pre-sentence interview. A lot of that happens. They get that. It's not training, but it comes with experience. So the advice I'm going to give you comes from other federal judges across the country who've been interviewed by Attorney Alan Ellis. The first is from Robert Scalia. Don't think about sentencing advocacy. Don't wait, because 99% of federal clients are going to wind up facing sentencing. So start preparing for the sentencing case early on. You have Judge Patrick Schultz. It's surprising how many otherwise competent attorneys punt at the sentencing hearing. In other words, you're not prepared. The as being the defendant, are you ready to speak with your judge's sentencing? And most of the main reason what would make you prepared is if you've written a well-developed, compelling narrative, autobiography about yourself. And lastly is Mark Bennett, who has been published extensively on the importance of writing your own personal story, autobiography, or narrative, and then including it in your pre-sentence report. And so I have, all of that documented throughout my website. It doesn't matter if you're a COO, CEO, a physician, lawyer, politician, if you've gotten involved in PPP fraud, loan fraud, if tax evasion, the decisions you make after you've learned that you're guilty is going to determine what happens to you for the rest of your life. And so I think it's important to understand that these judges have been interviewed along with many others across the country. And so as you prepare for your pre-sentence interview and sentencing hearing, when I would think you'd want to know what do federal judges think? What are their expectations? And so we'll continue by saying that at minimum, I think you're going to need at least 3 months between that guilty, when you learn you're guilty, and when you have to go for your interview. It's not saying that more months would not be beneficial, because it would be. Less months, we can make that work also, but it just requires it's just not as easy on you, but we can get the work done. If you want me to work with you, I would love to. My phone 240-888-7778. I'm pretty much available 24/7, 365. But the reason is that, first of all, your attorney is going to get from the probation officer a list of lots of information they're going to need from you. It's going to go into tax returns, copies of your marriage certificates, birth certificates, passport information, your insurances, your mortgages. It's a litany of information. Plus, if you have a business, well, may have to dissolve it. You may have to sell it. You may have to, put someone else in charge. All of this takes time. You will have personal and family issues to deal with, financial issues to deal with, parenting issues. There's, a lot that goes into just within the family, and it doesn't happen in 5 days. I've spoken to people that were given a week between guilty, and all of a sudden they had to have their pre-sentence interview. And I said, no. I mean, I'm not a judge, I'm not a lawyer, but try and get it extended. If you have essentially a straightforward medical condition, let's just say you're taking hydrochlorothiazide, which is a diuretic. It's widely used, very cheap. It's available in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. You need to have all of your medical records. You need to have enough time for the hospital, the doctor's office, the portal, diagnostic tests to get all of those records together. You need to make sure that the prescription, this is the example hydrochlorothiazide, but you need to make sure that it's on the Bureau of Prisons formulary, because if it's on the formulary, you should get it. They may have a non-formulary generic list. If it's there, you're still not going to get it. The example I'm giving you is because there was a gentleman who went into prison. He had all of his medical records. He did everything correctly. He brought in the original prescription bottle, and the intake nurse still didn't follow the prescription. They cut his dosage. He wound up having heart issues. Then they changed the drug from a diuretic or water pill to a lisinopril or another type of drug. That gave him transient ischemic attacks. He wound up in the emergency room of the local hospital several times. And ultimately, the federal judge blew a gasket. he was incensed because getting a sentence to prison doesn't mean that you're supposed to come home dead in a pine box. And he had to actually agree to compassionate release and let him go to a hospital and then go home. And so this is serious stuff. And you may have less issues, but I use the example of a generic water pill for high blood pressure, and they still got it wrong. And there are other examples that I'll go into in other YouTubes. There's not going to be any guarantees here what the Bureau of Prisons is going to do. The judge cannot order the Bureau of Prisons to give you a specific medication or medical treatment. I mean, the judge can do it, but they're not going to listen. It doesn't happen. And so you need time to get all of this information together and to go through the list of drugs with someone who knows, what's on their list. I have the whole list in my computer. As I said, there's no guarantees, and shouldn't have any expectations, really. Next, consider writing a compelling biography as to what brought you to this point in your life. This will take time to do with someone who knows how to write these things, where you accept responsibility for your actions and there's no excuses. You don't make excuses. This compelling biography or narrative is important. Then you want to request several types of letters that attest to your character. And they know that you were in prison. And these are important also. They make, and there's three different kinds I have. There's one that they know that friends of yours, people that have known you for a long time, clergy, friends, relatives, how this is out of character, you're a good person. Others maybe that have known you a long time where, you've assisted them as a child, you shoveled snow next door, you helped deliver food, you helped in the community. Someone who is, they're willing to let you, another letter is from people who are supporting you, willing to take you back into your home or their home upon release. It'll be a safe home, safe neighborhood. These are all very important letters. And lastly, someone that you may know or a relative that may be willing to hire you. And they say they know you've been in prison, but they, know that academically you're very smart. They trust you. This is so out of character for you, and they want to help you get back on your feet. These are very important letters. And that character letter, where it's offering you a job, judges want to see this. And the only way they're going to see it is if it gets into your pre-sentence interview, part of your pre-sentence report, and then it gets to the judge. And so it's very, very important to try and pull all of this stuff together before you get to your pre-sentence interview. Because once you've gathered all the information and you've reviewed it with your attorney, if you can get it to the probation officer, then the probation officer has time to review everything. Then they have to fill out their own pre-sentence report worksheets. Mind you, they see people every day, many, many people every week. And so for them getting all the information that is organized and spell checked in a manner that they can input it, copy paste it, or insert it somehow into their pre-sentence interview worksheet or pre-sentence report worksheet, they have time now during the interview not to gather information, but to get to know who you are as a person, personally get to know you, and ask any remaining questions that they may have. But because judges depend on them for their sentencing recommendation, placement recommendation, and if they think you're a jerk, they'll tell the judge. And if they think you're a nice person, they may also tell that to the judge. And that opens the door at sentencing where the judge may ask if you have anything to say. And if you've taken the time to write your compelling biography, you may be comfortable enough now to have that conversation with your judge. And who knows? No promises, but he may depart below the guidelines. Nothing's guaranteed. But if you do nothing and you write nothing, the judge is going to be left to sentence you based on your indictment, which makes you seem like the worst person in the world. Hope you found this helpful. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I hope you have a safe day.